Jason Statham wasn't the kind of man who liked crowded places. Too many people meant too much noise, too much chaos. But even an action star needed groceries. So there he was, in a quiet supermarket on the outskirts of town, dressed in a black hoodie and jeans, blending in as best he could. He moved through the aisles with purpose: eggs, milk, some fruit, and a pack of protein bars. Simple, quick, in and out. But as he reached for a loaf of bread, something caught his attention. A voice. Sharp, taunting. "You're holding up the line, lady. Maybe shop somewhere you can actually afford." Jason turned his head slightly, just enough to see the situation unfold near the checkout. A woman, early 30s, exhausted but composed, was fumbling through her purse with a small child clinging to her leg. Her cart wasn't overflowing, just a few necessities. Baby formula, bread, canned goods. The basics. But the three men behind her weren't feeling patient. The one who had spoken, a bulky guy in a cheap leather jacket, rolled his eyes and huffed. His friends, equally unpleasant, snickered. "I'm almost done," the woman said softly, her voice carrying the kind of tiredness only a single mother could know. "Oh, take your time," Leather Jacket sneered. "It's not like anyone else has places to be." Jason had seen this kind of thing before. Bullies. Guys who got a thrill out of making people feel small. He exhaled slowly. This wasn't his problem. He wasn't here to play hero. And yet, the child, maybe 5 years old, was gripping his mother's coat, eyes wide, scared. That did it. Jason set his basket down. He didn't march over. No dramatic entrance. He just walked, calm and controlled, stepping in line right behind the bullies. "That's enough," he said, his voice low but commanding. Leather Jacket turned, irritated. "Excuse me." Jason met his eyes. No anger, no bravado, just a steady, unreadable stare. "You heard me." For a moment, the man hesitated. That was the thing about real toughness. You could always tell when someone had it. And when they didn't. His friends shifted uneasily, sensing a shift in power. But Leather Jacket wasn't about to back down in front of an audience. "Mind your own business, mate." Jason tilted his head slightly. "I was. But you made it mine." The tension in the air thickened. The mother looked between them, unsure what was about to happen. The cashier, an older woman who had seen her fair share of trouble, reached for the store phone. Leather Jacket smirked, trying to save face. "What? You gonna fight me over a checkout line?" Jason didn't move. "Not unless you give me a reason." His voice was quiet, controlled, dangerous. The smirk faltered. Leather Jacket scoffed, grabbing his basket. "Whatever, man." He nodded to his friends. "Let's go." The three of them walked off, muttering under their breath, but knowing better than to push their luck. Jason turned to the mother. "You all right?" She nodded quickly. "Thank you." He gave her a small nod, then picked up his own basket and stepped to the side, as if nothing had happened. Just another grocery trip. But the mother and child wouldn't forget, and neither would the bullies. Jason Statham didn't like trouble, but trouble had a way of finding him. The three men, humiliated in front of the entire store, weren't the type to let something like that slide. As the mother finished paying for her groceries and hurried out with her child, Jason grabbed his own basket and walked toward the self-checkout. But he could feel it. The weight of their stares, the heat of wounded pride turning into something uglier. He had seen this before. Men like these never knew when to walk away. Oi! Jason didn't turn right away. He finished scanning his protein bars, took his receipt, and only then did he look up. Leather Jacket and his two lackeys were waiting near the exit, arms crossed, jaws clenched. The kind of stance men took when they wanted to prove something. Jason sighed. He had hoped this would be over already. One of the goons, a wiry guy with a shaved head, leaned in. "You think you're some kind of tough guy." Jason slipped his receipt into his pocket. "No," he picked up his bag. "Just don't like seeing cowards picking on women and kids." Leather Jacket took a step closer, his fists clenching. "You made us look bad." Jason gave him a flat look. "You did that to yourself." Insult landed. Shaved head and the third guy, a heavy-set brute with a buzz cut, shifted like they were waiting for the go signal. Jason exhaled. He'd given them a way out. They didn't take it. Leather Jacket smirked, mistaking Jason's patience for hesitation. Yeah. What now, tough guy? Jason took a step forward, so close now that the smug grin on the man's face twitched. Jason's voice dropped, low and even. I want you to think very carefully about your next move. Silence. A few store employees were watching nervously. A security guard, an older man with a belly too big for the job, looked unsure if he should intervene. Leather Jacket's nostrils flared. He hated being challenged, hated how this stranger didn't flinch the way most people did. He shoved Jason's shoulder. Not hard. Just testing. Jason barely moved. Didn't blink. Leather Jacket tried again, harder this time. Jason tilted his head. That's 2 mistakes. Leather Jacket snorted. And what's 3? Jason's fist shot out. A blur. A crack. Leather Jacket staggered back, clutching his nose as blood dripped through his fingers. His friends froze, eyes wide. Jason rolled his shoulders. That. Shaved head cursed and swung. Jason ducked, grabbed the man's wrist, and twisted. A yelp, followed by a swift elbow to the gut. The guy crumpled. Buzzcut hesitated, unsure now. Jason fixed his gaze on him. Wanna be number 3? Buzzcut turned and bolted. Leather Jacket groaned, still holding his nose, and Jason crouched beside him. This was never gonna go your way, he said quietly. Walk away. Man nodded, defeated. Jason stood, grabbed his grocery bag, and headed for the door. The security guard exhaled in relief. A few bystanders murmured in awe. Jason. He just wanted to go home. But something told him this wasn't over yet. Jason stepped out into the cool evening air, his grocery bag in one hand, his thoughts already drifting away from the scuffle inside. He had dealt with men like that his whole life, loud, insecure, desperate to prove themselves. It wasn't personal. It never was. But some people never knew when to quit. A sharp whistle cut through the air. Jason sighed before he even turned around. Leather Jacket was back, this time standing by the side of the store, nostrils flaring, blood still smeared under his nose. But he wasn't alone. 2 more men had joined him. Bigger, meaner. One had arms like tree trunks, tattoos snaking up both biceps. The other had a shaved head and a thick gold chain around his neck. They weren't just random thugs. These guys looked like they'd been in real fights before. Leather Jacket smirked. Thought you'd just walk away, did ya? He gestured to his new friends. Meet the boys. They don't like guys who stick their noses where they don't belong. Jason glanced at them, unimpressed. You sure about this? Tattoo Arms cracked his knuckles. Yeah. Jason exhaled. He set his grocery bag down carefully by the curb. All right. Gold Chain lunged first, swinging a wild hook. Jason sidestepped, caught the man's wrist midair, and drove an elbow into his ribs. Gold Chain gasped, stumbling back. Tattoo Arms was next. He didn't hesitate. He rushed forward, throwing a brutal right hook. Jason ducked, planted his foot, and struck fast. A sharp jab to the man's kidney, followed by a palm strike to the chin. Tattoo Arms reeled, blinking in shock. What the? Jason didn't let him finish. He grabbed the back of the man's head and drove his knee into his gut. The air left Tattoo Arms in a single, painful wheeze as he collapsed onto the pavement. Leather Jacket took a nervous step back. Get him, he barked at Gold Chain. Gold Chain hesitated. Jason met his eyes, dead calm. Think about it. A long pause. Gold Chain wasn't stupid. He backed away. Nah, man. I'm out. He turned and walked off, shaking his head. Leather Jacket was alone now. Jason picked up his grocery bag. Last chance. Leather Jacket looked around, breathing hard. He had nothing left. No backup. No fight. Just anger and embarrassment. He cursed under his breath, then turned and staggered off into the night. Jason watched him go. Then, with a shrug, he picked up his groceries and walked to his car. Just another evening. Jason opened the trunk of his car and placed his grocery bag inside. He was ready to be done with this nonsense. But then, a heavy footstep behind him. Jason turned just in time to see Leather Jacket charging. Too predictable. Jason sidestepped, and Leather Jacket's wild punch whiffed through empty air. The momentum sent him stumbling forward, nearly crashing into a shopping cart. He spun back, fists clenched, face twisted with rage. "You think you're tough?" he spat, wiping more blood from his nose. Jason sighed. "I think you're an idiot." Leather Jacket roared and swung again. This time, Jason didn't sidestep. He stepped in, fast and close, blocking the punch with his forearm and burying a hook into the man's ribs. A grunt. A stumble. Leather Jacket wasn't expecting real pain. But he wasn't alone. Tattoo Arms, still dazed from the earlier fight, had gotten back up, and he was pissed. He grabbed a metal shopping cart and swung it like a battering ram. Jason barely ducked in time. The cart smashed into a parked car, the alarm blaring through the lot. Jason spun, grabbing the cart and yanking it toward Tattoo Arms, forcing him off balance. A second later, Jason's knee drove into his stomach. Tattoo Arms collapsed onto the hood of the car. People had noticed now. A small crowd was gathering outside the store. A couple of cashiers peered through the window, whispering. The security guard hesitated near the doors, hand hovering over his radio. Jason turned back to Leather Jacket, the last man standing. "Still want to do this?" Jason asked, adjusting his sleeves. Leather Jacket roared in frustration and reached into his jacket. Jason moved instantly. He lunged forward, grabbing the man's wrist before he could pull anything. A quick twist, sharp and controlled. Asterisk, asterisk, and Leather Jacket yelped, dropping the small pocket knife onto the pavement. Asterisk, asterisk. Jason kicked it away. Then, with a final move, he grabbed Leather Jacket by the collar and slammed him against the side of the shopping cart. "Let me be clear," Jason said, voice low and even. "This is done. Walk away, or you won't be walking at all." Silence. Leather Jacket panted, fear finally cutting through his anger. He nodded. Fast. Jason released him. Leather Jacket scrambled to his feet, grabbed Tattoo Arms by the shoulder, and dragged him away. Jason adjusted his jacket, exhaled, and turned toward the store entrance. The security guard just blinked at him. Jason shrugged. They started it. Then, as if nothing had happened, he walked back inside. He still needed his eggs. The automatic door slid open as Jason Statham stepped back into the grocery store. A dozen eyes were on him, cashiers, shoppers, even the guy stacking cereal boxes in aisle 3. Nobody said a word. Jason walked calmly to the checkout counter, grabbed a carton of eggs, since his first one was now shattered on the pavement, and placed it on the conveyor belt. The cashier, a woman in her late 50s with silver hair and sharp eyes, hesitated before scanning the carton. "That was," she trailed off, unsure how to phrase it. Jason smirked. "Just another Tuesday." A few nervous chuckles rippled through the crowd, but the tension still lingered. The store manager, a balding man with sweat stains under his collar, waddled over, adjusting his name tag. "Sir, we appreciate you handling that outside, but we'd prefer if—" Jason held up a hand. "I know. No fights in the store." The manager nodded quickly. "Right. Exactly. Just, liability." Jason tapped his fingers on the counter as the cashier bagged his eggs. "Don't worry. Problem's handled." A soft voice from behind. "Thank you." Jason turned. The single mother he had defended earlier stood a few feet away, holding her son's hand. Her eyes were filled with gratitude, but also a flicker of something deeper relief. Jason gave her a small nod. "You all right?" She smiled. "Yeah, thanks to you." Her son, a little boy with wide brown eyes, looked up at Jason in awe. "Mister, are you a superhero?" Jason chuckled. "Nah, mate. Just a guy who doesn't like bullies." The boy beamed. "Well, you were awesome." Jason ruffled the kid's hair. "You're not so bad yourself." The cashier handed him his bag, and Jason gave the mother one last nod before heading for the exit. As he stepped outside, the night air was cool, calm. The trouble was over. For now. Jason walked to his car, tossed the eggs onto the passenger seat, and fired up the engine. Just another day. Just another fight. But somewhere, a mother and her child were going home safe. And that. Jason sat behind the wheel of his car, hands resting on the steering wheel, letting the moment settle. The fight was over. The bullies had learned their lesson, At least for tonight. He glanced in the rearview mirror. The single mother was still outside, adjusting her son's jacket as she loaded her groceries into an old sedan. The boy looked up at her, smiling, full of energy. Safe. Jason smirked to himself. That was all that mattered. He reached for the gear shift, but just as he was about to drive off, there was a knock on his window. He turned. The mother stood there, looking hesitant but determined. Jason rolled down the window. I didn't really get to thank you properly, she said, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear. Most people wouldn't have stepped in. Jason shrugged. Most people should. She smiled. Yeah, they should. A brief pause. Then she reached into her pocket and pulled out a small slip of paper. Look, I don't know if you're just passing through town or if you live nearby, but if you ever need a home-cooked meal, give me a call. Jason glanced down at the paper. Her name and number, written in neat, careful handwriting. He looked back up. Appreciate it. She nodded. And I hope you know that what you did, it mattered. Jason held her gaze for a moment, then gave a small nod. Take care of yourself, yeah? She smiled, then turned back to her car. Jason watched as she drove off, her son waving out the window. He gave the kid a small wave back before tossing the paper onto the dashboard. He wasn't sure if he'd call. Probably not. But that wasn't the point. Tonight, a mother and child got home safe. And somewhere out there, 3 bullies would think twice before picking on someone again. Jason shifted the car into drive, pulled out of the lot, and disappeared into the night. Just another day. Just another fight. But some fights are worth it. Always.